In this series, we are dealing with the role of the foreman from various angles. In Volume 1, we considered ways to deal with problems on the shop floor and ensure the cooperation of the whole team. In Volume 2, we look at training techniques that can be used to answer these questions. How do we go about getting rid of the little frustrations that disrupt smooth working on the shop floor? How can we get the best from everyone in the team? How can we help everyone to develop their skills? Let's start by hearing some comments from 3 Japanese superintendents.
Well, even though automation is spreading rapidly, the machines are still run by people, and the final product depends on the skill of people. It's up to the foreman to help those people to do their job with confidence and a sense of responsibility. I always say that there's nothing more important than really keeping a close eye on everyone in the team, watching out for any small changes in habits or general attitude or their efficiency on the job. You can really judge how much progress a person is making by watching what they do carefully. Well, this may sound obvious, but I really think the foreman has to explain things very clearly and point by point. You can't assume that everyone will understand the first time. After all, the foreman may have to deal with people of all types and ages and degrees of experience. There's nothing better than trying to put yourself in their position and thinking about it.
Well, those are some comments from real bosses who have a lot of experience with foremen. Their views are full of common sense, but it's easier to talk about something than to actually do it. To put it simply, the future of the company depends a lot on whether or not the workers on the shop floor can develop both their skills and their ability to get on with their fellow workers. And it is the foreman's responsibility to train them to do just that. So let's consider the foreman's role as a teacher. In Volume 1, we discussed the 3 main roles of the foreman. Here they are again. In this video, we'll take a look at the practical aspects of the second main role of the foreman: how to be an effective leader and develop the potential of the team members. There's one experience that none of us can forget: what happened to us at school. Most of us had trouble with certain subjects, such as grammar or history or art. Ones that were easy for the other children we found really difficult to handle. We got frustrated and gave up. But although we failed some tests at school, perhaps we had no problem with subjects or tests of different skills later on. The point is that all of us have differences in both personality and ability to do particular things. That means that we all need slightly different ways of instruction or training to bring out the best in us and to get us interested. To be a good instructor, you need to know what it feels like to be in the student's position. Before you became a foreman, how did you feel towards your boss? Maybe you had complaints sometimes, or feelings of respect, and so on. But you can't expect to be respected just because you are the boss. You have to earn the respect of your team. We'll take a close look at 6 basic training points, which are very useful for encouraging enthusiasm in the workplace and helping to develop potential. 1. Stress the basics. 2. Explain the purpose. 3. Stick to the point. 4. Be sensitive. 5. Meet problems head-on. 6. Be positive. Let's look at them in order.
Well, I can see why the boss wants a 20% cut. Yeah, what's wrong with these new people? Can't even say excuse me.
Yeah.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's really frustrating teaching basics. But it's not only the new ones.
Huh?
Even Ono took the day off yesterday without telling us. So I thought I'd give her a talking to.
Huh?
So what happened yesterday? You didn't come in, you didn't even tell us.
Well, I felt bad when I got up in the morning.
But you could have told us.
What? Didn't my mom call? She normally does. Well, so I thought she had.
I was amazed. I couldn't say anything. She didn't even apologize. She doesn't think she's wrong. That's what we have to put up with.
Well, what do you think? We've just seen two workers who are not aware they've done anything wrong. Which means, of course, their foreman will have to stress the basics. The world is changing very rapidly, and people's attitudes can change very quickly too. This makes it difficult for the foreman to know exactly how to best approach his or her team members and show them just how they should be cooperating properly with everybody else. There must be a reason for everything you teach. And as you're probably aware, teaching points are often basically just common sense. The important thing is that you become able to sort out for yourself just why something is important. So what does the foreman have to do? First of all, see the team members as they really are. Then, when you realize there is a need, teach what is appropriate. And this may even include manners and etiquette. You don't have to talk down to people, but it's important not to neglect the basics if they're not being observed. Stress the basics. Have a reason for each teaching point. Don't neglect the basics. Point for developing potential. See team members as they really are.
You wanted to see me?
Ah, there you are. Yes. Why didn't you notice this?
What's wrong?
Can't you see? There's a short.
Oh, so there is. But you didn't tell me to pay attention to that.
The situation of the shop floor worker only doing exactly what he or she has been told is probably very familiar and can be very annoying to the foreman, right? But just a minute. Before you get angry, perhaps it is better to think whether in fact you are just using the team members as tools rather than as human beings. Every job has a vital role in the production system as a whole, and that is what the foreman must explain clearly. The ideal situation is that any worker will feel free to ask your advice whenever there is a feeling that something is wrong, even if the exact problem may not be clear. And the foreman needs patience to deal with that. The fact that your advice is sought is always a good sign. So don't waste the opportunity. If everyone is clear about the importance of what they are doing and the need to avoid sloppy work, then the whole work situation will become more enjoyable and satisfying. Understanding the purpose of the work leads to greater enthusiasm. In other words, the foreman is in a good position to encourage the interest of the team members and help them to extend their ability. Of course, you must leave the work up to them, but also encourage them to think for themselves. There is nothing worse than the foreman who displays a negative attitude. So always display a positive attitude when your advice is asked for. Explain the purpose. Explain the role of the work in the production process. Points for developing potential. Encourage enthusiasm. Compliment good work. Let people think for themselves.
Well, surely that's common sense. How on earth have you been working? You know, you've been a bit funny recently. And you took that day off without telling us.
Why do you have to bring that up again?
What do you mean, why? Can't you see? I'm concerned about you. You should know that.
Well, please don't bother.
What?
There are times during training when the foreman cannot avoid getting angry. But if you do this in the wrong way, the result will be some kind of backlash and workers who are upset. The important thing is that the foreman doesn't regard the process of reprimanding someone as an excuse for releasing his or her own stress. It should simply be used when the team member is obviously lazy or not really concentrating on the job in hand. What Mr. Abe did was to bring up a point not actually related to the problem being discussed. Bringing up problems from the past or touching on someone's personality is guaranteed to lead to friction. Don't pile up everything at the same time. If the same mistake is repeated, then of course it is quite reasonable to point this out. But more important is to give clear advice so that the person can understand fully and avoid the same mistake in future. And if something has to be taught yet again, then the foreman has to try and do it with patience. Nobody likes to reprimand people, and it's not easy to do it effectively. But there are times when it cannot be avoided. But it will be of no use at all if the person involved doesn't understand why they are being disciplined. Stick to the point. Don't bring up past problems or touch on personalities. Point for developing potential. The purpose of reprimanding is to help staff change for the better.
Can you spare a moment?
Just a minute.
Yes.
Well, what is it?
You see, I've written up a suggestion.
Let me see.
I've been thinking about this for a while, and finally I've got it down on paper.
Well, thanks for your effort. I haven't got much time at the moment. Can I think about it tonight? I'll give you an answer tomorrow.
Yes, of course.
Right.
Hey, Hara,
Fuji!
let's go.
Okay.
Hey, how did your suggestion go?
I talked to Sato. I just gave it in. Just a second. I've got it here. Wait. I think this one will work.
Let's have a look.
What do you think? Looks good, huh? Well, what do you think of the idea?
Well, it won't work.
What? Why?
Well, it might be okay for you, but it's going to give us a lot of trouble.
Why? What's the problem?
Okay. Now, if you do this, then it comes to us, and we'll have to check everything.
Oh? Oh, you're right. Yeah, I see. Hey, it was clever of you to spot that.
Anybody could see that. So much for your wonderful idea.
How come he should see that so easily? Maybe I should rethink it.
A suggestion is really an expression of a person's enthusiasm for the work. And it is this enthusiasm which is so important to encourage. So, what does the foreman do when a suggestion appears? Of course, if it's obviously a good suggestion, then it should be accepted immediately. But when it is not really such a good idea, the foreman somehow has to point that out, without thereby losing the person's enthusiasm. The technique we have just seen is one way of doing it. First, you accept the basic idea as something worth considering. But explain that you need more time to look at it carefully and will give your opinions the next day. This overnight thought process is the important point. It not only gives the person involved some time to rethink, it also gives you time to see exactly what is wrong with the suggestion, pick out any good points, and decide exactly how you want to explain your opinions. Then, the next day, you can clearly point out what is not quite right with the suggestion. The result of this technique, properly handled, is that the person will understand your evaluation, feel satisfied because you have thought about it carefully, and go away happy. Encouraging the efforts of team members is really important, not only with suggestions, but when evaluating work in general. By understanding what the person is thinking and what he or she is trying to achieve, the foreman can even turn down ideas without causing any bad feeling. The members of the team will soon sense whether or not the foreman is making an effort to understand them. Be sensitive. Appreciate the efforts of your team. Point for developing potential. Foster enthusiasm. Now let's see what happens when an experienced worker with a reputation for being difficult and stubborn is transferred to Sato's team.
Well, he's good at his work, but not very cooperative. But I don't want to keep moving him around. I'm sure that you can handle him, if anyone can. Anyway, see what you can do.
Right. I'll try. Well, Miura, you're more experienced than me. But the company's made me the foreman. At the moment, in this section, things are really going quite well. And I'm sure you really have a lot to teach us. Frankly, my biggest worry is the relationship between the two of us. I must say, I do respect your professional skills. And I'm willing to cooperate if you are. I'm sure we can get on together. So please feel free to give me any comments or suggestions you come up with anytime. I'd appreciate your help.
As you can see, it is not so easy to deal with workers who are tough or stubborn or difficult in some way, or those who are older or have more experience than the foreman. But it is certainly true to say that nothing will be gained on either side by the foreman taking a cool attitude right from the beginning. Mr. Sato's attitude is much likelier to be successful, taking a positive attitude and trying to establish a good working relationship, while making it clear that the foreman is the leader of the team. Tackling the situation head-on may not be easy to do, but it may change preconceptions you have of someone transferred into your section. Of course, the worker involved may regard the change as a chance for personal improvement anyway. Nothing will be lost if the foreman takes a patient approach and encourages rather than discourages. The worst policy is to try and escape confrontation just because he or she seems hard to handle. The fact that you are prepared to meet the situation head-on proves you are the leader. Meet problems head-on. Avoid preconceptions and have a positive attitude. However difficult, the leader meets problems head-on. Point for developing potential. Grow along with the team.
Well, I pity you, Sato. They've really dropped a load on your shoulders this time.
What do you mean?
That old reject in your team.
Who do you mean?
You know, Miura.
Don't be silly. He's not a burden at all. I don't think he's a problem. He's quite experienced. I've got a lot to learn, and I'm glad he's here to help me. He's an important part of the team.
Whoa. Do you really think he can do the job?
Sure can. He's just the type we need to pull things together.
Well, I'm surprised.
Let's face it, any person in any company wants to be noticed. They want to feel they're worth something. This is true of people of all ages. The boss who can make them feel that way and who shows that he appreciates their existence is the one who will get the best response from his team. It's no good praising people only when you know they can hear. As someone once said, the best compliments are those that are not meant for your ears. Of course, it is often harder to find good points than bad points. Being too complimentary only sounds like flattery, and if you repeat the same praise many times, it sounds like insincerity, as though you are making a fool of the person. But it is not a bad idea to try and find at least one thing to praise every day. This means taking notice of what is going on in the workplace, noticing every little improvement. Anyone appreciates genuine praise. And more than that, the very fact that you notice will have a good effect. If a worker feels accepted, he or she will have a greater sense of work satisfaction and will try harder to please. So be creative with your praise. In other words, never feel this kind of thing is troublesome. It's a vital factor in developing potential. Be positive. Look for good points. Create a positive atmosphere. Point for developing potential. Take an interest in everyone and show that you accept them fully. Now let's have another look at the 6 basic training points. 1. Careful teaching from the basics can lead to big steps forward. 2. Explain the purpose of the work to get everyone involved. 3. Stick to the point when discussing problems to avoid negative backlash. 4. Understand the feelings of your team in order to encourage a positive attitude. 5. Avoid preconceptions and meet challenges head-on. 6. Look for good points. Evaluate positively to increase effort in the workplace. Well, what do you think of those points? As we said before, it may be easy to understand these ideas, but not so easy to put them into practice. Action is more important than mere knowledge. Nobody can hope for success every time. There may be the occasional failure, but that's nothing to worry about. The workplace environment is sure to improve if you can laugh with the workers sometimes, show your willingness to develop with them, and demonstrate that you do care. In other words, make it clear that you're all in it together.